So this is sort of a, I pieced some things together to make it sort of a story by itself that are pieces from the novel. And so I think that should explain enough, hopefully. When Daria was 10, she and her mother had to move from their one-bedroom apartment in North Hollywood. It was the kind of building where the manager chased bag ladies from the hallway every morning. Mrs. Rivera used a broom to do it, but still Daria's mother didn't want to leave, and she blamed her daughter when it happened. It wasn't fair. Daria had tried to keep everything together after her mother got sick, and she had lasted almost a month. Lena stopped eating, so Daria learned to make mac and cheese from the box. She even made it taste good when the milk ran out. But her mother wouldn't eat. She wouldn't go to work either. Instead, she stayed in her bed listening to Leonard Cohen and the blues, always the stupid blues. When 2 weeks passed and it was clear that Daria's father really wasn't coming back this time, she learned to sign her mother's name on attendance slips. She went to school only on the days she had to, like when there was a math test or a book report due. On the third week, she scrounged change from the couch, but it wasn't enough. She had to break into her piggy bank, which was really a donkey wearing a serape. She loved him, but they needed peanut butter and bread more. On the way to the store with a pile of change jingling in her pockets, Daria ran into Mrs. Rivera in the hall. Ay, pobrecita, tu mami está enferma? I don't see her lately. Yes, she's very sick. It was kind of a lie, but kind of not, and Daria felt better telling an adult. Mrs. Rivera took her to her apartment for tamales. She gave her 2 to eat and 2 to take home to Lena. When Daria wolfed them down, she gave her some pan dulce and milk too. She had the best kind, the sprinkled cookie kind. I guess you know cooking, Mrs. Rivera asked. No, she just lays in bed. She doesn't even like food anymore. Daria finished the milk in 2 swigs. That's no good. You make her eat this. Mrs. Rivera handed her a plastic country crock tub full of albandiga soup. Don't microwave in the tub. I make that mistake. I can use the stove, Daria said. I know how. Okay, I come over later to see if your mommy feels better. No, you don't have to. Thanks, Mrs. R. Daria grabbed the plastic bag and left. She scurried home with the feast. Maybe if she used the pretty red bowl with flowers on it and put the tamales on the matching plate, her mom would be hungry. Look what I brought you, she said. Lena didn't respond. Mom, come sit at the table. I have albandiga soup too. Go play, Lena said. I'm tired. Daria looked at her mother's matted, greasy hair. Lena didn't bother to brush it anymore, or her teeth. She didn't sleep at the right time either, and she didn't care when Daria slept. You have to eat. They're going to take me away from you if you don't get better. Daria didn't know who they were, but she knew that the Sepulveda brothers had been taken from their mom, and she never saw them at the apartments again. Don't be crazy, Daria. Nobody's taking you away. It was the most energy Lena had expended in days. Just don't go telling people what happens in this house. You understand? She grabbed Daria by the arm. It's nobody's business. Lena looked at the plate and picked at the corner of one tamal. She chewed the masa and managed to swallow one meaty pocket down. It took almost 30 minutes, but Daria didn't care. And just because I gave Mrs. Rivera a key doesn't mean you should be blabbing away. Lena was angry, and even though Daria dreaded that, it was a good sign. Her mother was getting better. What did you tell her anyway? She's a big-mouthed chismosa, you know, just like your tias and your grandmother. Daria busied herself in her mother's room. Look what I found, your favorite sweatpants, the one with the juicy on the butt. Her mother shook her head but took the pants. You're getting too big for your own good, she said. Then Lena took a shower and sat for an hour afterward, combing all the tangles out of her long hair. She brushed Daria's hair too and made 2 braids fastened with purple rubber bands on the ends, the kind with the plastic balls that clickety-clacked when Daria shook her head. But it was too late. Uncle Hank showed up the next day with the truck. Mom says you're a mess and you gotta come home now, he said. He started to pick up a kitchen chair to move it. No, I don't want anything, Lena said. We should burn this place down. Hey, don't talk like that. Uncle Hank told her she had to at least take her clothing. She threw them in a garbage bag. Daria took her twin bed and the teddy bear father had won at the school carnival. And they moved in with her grandmother, who lived in a crooked house on a crooked street in East LA. The first night at Beatrice's house, Lena chose the bedroom with her mother's old vanity in it. She sat silently brushing her hair as Daria watched her in the mirror. You look pretty, Mom. You feeling better? Her mother stared back at her from the mirror, never turning her head. Go outside now, Daria. I don't want to see your ugly face. Daria avoided her mother as much as possible the first few weeks. She clung to her grandmother, even waking and sleeping when Beatrice did. The schedule allowed her to avoid any chance of being alone with Lena, and when school ended, her cousin Tanya came over almost every day. Uncle Hank's ex-wife said he could have Tanya all summer, so he brought her to Beatrice's house when he went to work. She spent the night a lot too, especially Fridays and Saturdays when Uncle Hank said he needed a break. On those nights, their grandma made them watch old movies. The girls didn't mind when it was the good stuff, like Jaws or Halloween. Beatrice liked horror and let them watch it as long as they didn't tell Lena. Daria and Tanya liked the cheesy comedies too. What they couldn't stand were the stories about women whose men beat them or tried to kill them. These shows seemed to play every day, all day. Some woman was being chased, slapped, or pinned down at any given moment on the TV. One hot afternoon when the girls gave up on playing outside, they came home to find Beatrice watching a movie of a white lady getting hit by her husband, again. Hi, Grandma, not this again, Daria said. Shh, you girls will like this one. She gets him in the end. They watched the screen as the woman sent her children outside. She hefted a great gasoline can and poured its contents around the sleeping man's bed. She lit a match and it all went up in flames. Finally, Tanya shouted, jumping up from the floor, throwing her arms in the air. I don't understand the rest of these women. Why don't they just leave the pendejos? Mija, we can't ever know why a woman stays. Maybe she thinks he's gonna change. Or maybe she thinks nobody else will want her. I'd rather be alone, Tanya said. We take what we think we deserve, her grandma said. When the girls weren't watching movies with Beatrice, they were outside that summer, growing brown and lean. They ran through the park most every day, chasing ice cream trucks, the sun, stray dogs, and each other. One Saturday night, Beatrice made popcorn in the skillet with a whole stick of butter, the way the girls liked it. They knew it must be a special occasion. Tonight, mijas, 3 of my favorite movies are on. We're gonna watch them all. Daria and Tanya tried to calculate how late they would get to stay up, but they also wondered what they would have to watch. You're gonna like them. It's the Pink Panther. The girls had never heard of it, but their grandma was right. They loved the slapstick silliness of the movies, especially the fight scenes. In fact, the next time Tanya came over and saw Daria's face, she suggested they start training, just like in the movie. She would be the Cato to Daria's Inspector Clouseau. Did your mom do that? Tanya pointed at the gash near Daria's mouth. Lena tried to hold back her anger when Beatrice was around, but sometimes she couldn't. Sometimes Daria did something bad or wrong or stupid, or Lena remembered why they were in East LA in the first place, and she had to hit Daria. Lena had slapped her and cut Daria's lip with a ring. It'll get better when we have our own apartment, Daria said. My dad says she hit you before anyway, Tanya said. I heard him tell Grandma. Sometimes Uncle Hank had a big mouth. Daria wondered what other things he told Tanya. Listen, I got an idea. We can train so you learn how to react when your mom comes at you. We have till school starts. Tanya practiced her stealthy maneuvers, hiding in closets and behind doors, jumping out and trying to scare Daria at any opportune moment. The first time it happened, Daria screamed and ran. This only made Tanya ramp up the frequency of her attacks. She was going to get Daria to become a fighter. And soon, she started to see some patterns. Daria knew, for example, that Tanya was always going to rush her or shove her when she exited the bathroom. So Daria began throwing the door open and hanging back for a few seconds. She learned to wait and then push her cousin back when she inevitably popped her head out. She even palmed Tanya's face one time, buying her time to escape from the flurry of kicks her cousin always employed. Another of Tanya's favorite tactics was to catch Daria sleeping. She liked to yank off the blankets and throw her nightgown over Daria's face. After the third time, she took to wearing her regular clothes in bed. It was a good idea because one Friday morning after Lena had left for beauty school, Tanya ripped the comforter off Daria. But she was ready. She screamed at her cousin and surprised her long enough to roll out of bed and quickly get to her feet, knocking the lamp off the bedside table as she did. She tried to pick it up, but her cousin rushed her. Karate chops came next. Ooh, ah! Tanya yelled and threw Daria against the closet door. She pressed her forearm against her cousin's throat, grunting and sweating. Daria tried to kick her in the shin, Uncle Hank told them he had seen a grown man cry from that. Daria struggled against her cousin, trying to escape the pressure at her throat, and almost succeeded. Then Tanya yelled, "Stop being a little bitch." Daria's shock lost her the fight. In that instant, her cousin punched her in the stomach and she crumpled to the floor. "What's the matter with you two?" Their grandmother was red-faced. "You've been acting crazy, yelling all the time, running through the house." The lamp caught Beatrice's eye. Oops, sorry. She picked it up and righted the shade. She looked down at Daria, who was sobbing, and helped her get up. "I was trying to help her. I didn't mean to make her." Tanya started crying now. "Sit down. Do you want me to separate you girls for the rest of the summer?" They both shook their heads no. "Then you have to stop fighting. Listen, when all us viejas are gone, you're going to have each other, and that's it. You're the next generation. You know, family is everything." Their grandmother berating them was somehow worse than Uncle Hank or even Lena. Daria never wanted to disappoint Beatrice. With one hand on each of their shoulders, Beatrice said, "Say you're sorry." Tanya looked at the ground and mumbled something incoherent. "She can't hear that. Can you hear her, mija?" Tanya apologized again, and Beatrice tapped Daria's shoulder. "Me too. Yeah, I'm sorry." "Now hug each other." The cousins half-heartedly embraced, slapping each other on the back. "Wow, that's the saddest thing I ever saw. Now you girls fix this room." Under Beatrice's watchful eye, Daria and Tanya stripped the bed, put the sheets in the wash, and vacuumed the rug together. Before she left them to finish cleaning, she surveyed the room. "And you girls are going to buy me a new one if that one's broke." They nodded and watched as Beatrice made her way toward the kitchen. "Why'd you say that?" Daria thought about her stupid Uncle Hank again. "I figured if I sounded like your mom, maybe you'd quit freezing up." "Well, it didn't work." "Listen, we can still practice," Tanya said, "and I'll pay for the stupid lamp. I got some allowance, okay?" They continued to practice and train every day. Daria started carrying one of her mom's black plastic combs as a weapon. They were thin and easy to slip into a pocket, and when she bent one back and let it slap against her cousin's skin, the effect was thrilling and satisfying. She learned to check each closet in the house when she knew Tanya was coming over. She flung doors open and yelled into empty rooms until her grandma told her to stop it with all the noise. The best fight came on a day that Beatrice had to leave the girls alone. Lena was at school, so the cousins were free. "Listen, I'm diabetes, so Tia Tonya is going to take me to the doctor. You two better behave." Her grandma walked toward the door with a purse on her arm. Daria tried not to laugh. Beatrice could never understand the difference between being the disease and being diabetic, but it made the girls happy, so she never corrected her. "Where's your cousin?" "I don't know, Grandma, but I'll find her." "Remember, I know, family's important." "So?" her grandmother probed. "No fighting." Satisfied, Beatrice left. Daria stood in the living room, deciding which room to check first. She knew her cousin was waiting, waiting to strike. It turned out that Tanya had flattened herself underneath the couch. Her arm shot out and grabbed Daria's skinny ankle. Before she even screamed, Daria stomped her foot, kicking loose from her cousin's grip. Tanya scuttled out from under the heavy piece of furniture onto her feet. But before she could get her balance, Daria knocked Tanya on the couch and pounced. She put a comb to Tanya's neck and yelled, "Wah!" The surprise on Tanya's face made Daria laugh. Tanya cracked up too, until they were hysterical. "That was so good. You finally got it." But summer was winding down, and Daria realized what she had known all along. She could never hit her own mother. Tanya said she had the right to defend herself, but they both knew Daria wouldn't. So instead, they practiced a blocking move that Uncle Hank had showed Tanya. Look, next time, put your arm up like this. Protect your face." Tanya crooked her elbow and shielded her face with her forearm, and Daria imitated the movement. Her cousin was always getting into fights at school, so she had to be ready. But for Daria, it felt hopeless. "Whenever she yells, I stop thinking," she said. "So don't think, you have to memorize it." To make it more realistic, Tanya screamed in Daria's face regularly and said mean things, all in hopes of getting her trained to react automatically. It was their own boot camp. But about a week from when school was supposed to start, the boot camp failed. Lena yelled at Daria for not taking the trash down the stairs and out to the street. Tanya wasn't there. She was with her dad. "Danny always does it, right, Grandma?" Daria turned to look at Beatrice. who was sitting in the chair. It's true. Her grandmother got up holding the newspaper in her hand. I make him rice and beans, and he takes out my trash every week. I didn't ask who does it. I told you to do it, Lena yelled at Daria. I'm sorry, Mom, I'll do it right now. It's too late. No, Lena, they don't come till tomorrow. Her grandmother had moved to the door. Go, mija, take the trash now. Beatrice held open the screen door. Daria just had to pass her mother to get to it. But Lena grabbed her by the arm hard and leaned into her. She spoke quietly, and Daria felt the heat of her words on her cheek. When I tell you to do something, you do it. I'm your boss, nobody else. Do you understand? I do, and Daria began to cry. And suddenly she was hiccuping all at once. She gulped for air, which caused more hiccups until she was sobbing. She couldn't control it. Stop it. Lena raised her hand to slap her daughter. Daria put her arm up, her body remembering. She even tucked her chin like Tanya had said. For once she could function in the middle of her mother's anger. She knew too that her grandmother had made her way closer to her. Lena, enough, leave her alone. Put your goddamned arm down before I break it, Lena whispered. Daria's eyes widened. She lowered her arm. Her mother hit her in the face and everything went wavy. Like always, no better this time. One time, 2 times, 3 times, and everything went wavy. Like always, no better this time. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. She stood outside of herself, but it wasn't because she was some great warrior. It was just what happened every time her mother was angry. Her grandmother cried somewhere in a corner. It sounded far away. Daria closed her eyes and somebody was whimpering. She wished they would stop it. And suddenly, time began again. She was released. No breath on her face, no hands burning the skin on her arms. I can't live here. Lena slammed the front door behind her. Beatrice got up and ran to lock it. Come here, mija, she said. She rocked Daria in her arms for a while, humming a song about green chilies that Daria liked. And then a more familiar tune played outside, something tinny. Oh, look what I found. She reached into her pocket and pulled out 3 quarters and 2 dimes. Take the trash now, mija, and get some ice cream. You're gonna feel better. But Daria knew she would only feel better when they had their own place. Or maybe that wouldn't matter either. Maybe Tanya was right. No, she needed something more, something better. She needed her father to come back. Then her mother would be happy. Outside, the trash can sat on the street. She walked down the stairs. Danny, the neighbor boy, stood in line at the truck. He was older than Daria, a lot older. She thought he was 16, her grandma had said. Hey you, how's your abuelita? She's fine. Daria looked at the ground. She couldn't look at his pretty brown eyes. She didn't want him to think she was some Chiona crying all the time. That's good. Get her whatever she wants, he said to the ice cream man. He wouldn't let her pay, even though she had coins sweating in her palm.